the Kings tonight.
All of them. Hello and welcome to I guess NBA pre-draft show. So if you're normal listeners to this, you probably just want to stop listening. And so we've got a couple of guests with us, Justin Rousseau, and we've got Matt Johnson. And then obviously Ian is normal. So we've got a Clippers fan, two Kings fan, and a Cavs fan. So this. And we're just going to go, I guess, through the NBA draft and just hope that the Kings don't trade Boogie in the next hour. So I guess we can get some Kings stuff at the end because it's just mental. But I guess we can talk about like the two bigs first, and I think it's pretty much everyone knows Towns is going first. So what's kind of all your guys' thoughts on Towns? Ian, if you want to go first, I guess.
Oh, sorry. Talking about Towns? Sorry. Tweeted
Yeah,
something about Mike Pouncey being overrated, so I should have expected that. Yeah, I like Towns a lot, and I definitely would take him number one, although I think I like Russell a little bit more. Just like the value of a big man and the way he fits into the current NBA. Like, you could just plug and play him, and it's just really hard to see him not being at least a good player, if not a great player. Like, I know a lot of people were buzzing about his jump shot in workouts and such, and that's a little tough to get too excited about because that's something that kind of comes and goes, especially in a game format. Are you really going to see him, nailing 17-footers all the time? Maybe in a couple years. You kind of saw it with Anthony Davis, how he developed. It's one of those things where you hope it happens, and it very well could happen, especially because he's a pretty good free throw shooter, so he's got the mechanics to do it. But I think for the Timberwolves, it's really exciting to have two good defensive prospects with Anthony Towns, and then also obviously pairing him with Wiggins. The only concern I really have with Towns is his foul rate. He fouled guys way too much in college. Like, that's got to change. He's got to be more under control, be a little bit more disciplined when guys are going at him. But I'm not sure that's a big enough thing for me to say that they shouldn't take him. I just think in today's current NBA, what he brings to the table is just incredibly valuable.
He doesn't seem like that explosive an athlete to me. It looks like he's hard for it to dunk sometimes. So maybe he has like a little range that way. But he's like he like runs nicely. I don't know. Has anyone else got thoughts on Towns? I guess he's been kind of like talked about.
I think it was a couple months ago I tweeted that he reminded me of a less evolved and refined Anthony Davis. And I watched the sports science video on him today because I figured I might as well start watching stuff to get ready for tonight and at least fill some of the time slot leading up to the draft. And his sports science stuff is crazy. Like, I think it was if you combine his vertical into what his height is, on defense, he can basically has a maximum jumping capacity of like just over 12 feet. So defensively, he's covering ground. And that's what I think his elite ability is. I think defensively, at worst, Towns will be a game-changing defensive player, and which is a lot like what Nerlens Noel was coming out. Which at worst, that's what he'll be. But offensively, I don't think people thought he was as good offensively coming out of high school as he was now in the first year in college, which was now he's hitting jumpers. In the tournament, he was having those right-handed post hooks out of nowhere, and I think teams start taking notice of what he can do there. But I think the one thing with, as Ian said though, with his foul trouble, I wonder a little bit though how much of that is because Calipari would tell him, you can just play like your hair's on fire just because there's so much depth behind you. Like, you have Lyles behind you. There's Dakari Johnson off the bench. Like, you can just play however you want. It's not like they're going to – like, their entire front line is not getting in foul trouble. So he could play.
He played, what, like 21 minutes a game or something? So,
yeah.
I mean, that would kind of give credit to that. I mean, the way he did, like, first and second teams with his guys, he was rotating them
same thing as well, right? He like foul trouble in 22 minutes a game in his 1 year at Kentucky, so that's kind of like a trend.
Yeah, and he was blocking, like, I think pace adjusted for 40 minutes. I think he was blocking like 4.5 shots a game or something, or 4 shots a game, which is insane. There was that stat, I think the only guys from Kentucky recently, or just in general, I think in like the last 8 drafts or something to produce. It was some absurd thing like 23 points, or no, 20 points, 10 rebounds, and like 4 blocks per 40 minutes pace adjusted. It was like Towns, Davis, and DeMarcus Cousins. It's like those aren't bad people to be compared with. So I mean, I like Towns a lot. I hope he pans out because he reminds me, like the whole Towns Okafor thing. I've said this numerous times. The Towns Okafor thing reminds me of Wiggins Parker last year. Like Parker went into the year as pretty much everyone's like, this guy's ready now and the #1 guy, and then Wiggins overtook him, which happened with pretty much Towns and Okafor. So I think Towns will be fine.
Have you got any thoughts on Towns, Matt, or should we go into, I guess, the other big first before we go to some of the guards?
No, I think everyone covered it well. We can go on.
Well, I guess sort of with like Okafor, the thing that kind of is different for him is he is like limited defensively, or they just asked him to do nothing. So is that going to be something where it's like DeMarcus, how they just tried to hide him at Kentucky so he didn't get in foul trouble? Do you think that's kind of because his offensive skill and hands are just incredible, so I guess he doesn't really need to work on that offensive part of his game. He can just kind of be coached defensively. Is that kind of, and I think he's good enough foot quickness to be like frustrating. And like I think that what's interesting with kind of Okafor is people saying that he's kind of a dated type of offense, but I think you can run kind of like a spread offense out of the post that still kind of works. And we're seeing how there's all this kind of mayhem around DeMarcus, who is a similar offensive player, being able to like split double teams in the post. So, and I don't think I think Okafor is already going to be like one of the best post offensive players just with his touch and feet. So do you think there's kind of, for me, he's been like really downgraded on because he's not defensively as good as Towns, and it's just not like a fashionable way to play. So I don't know how you feel about that, Ian. I know you're not a big Okafor guy, really.
So I like him a lot. As far as you're right, like I agree. Like I think he enters the NBA tonight as one of the better offensive bigs across the league. And depending on how you build the team, if you have a good defensive, maybe like a 3-and-D stretch 4, I think that you can get away with him defensively, for the full minutes. Like I don't think that's going to be a huge thing. I just don't like his fit really with the top few teams, and it really just comes down to draft philosophy. Like if you just want to acquire the top talent, I could totally understand taking him #1 or 2. It wouldn't be what I do for those teams, but again, that's more situational based, and it just kind of depends on long term what you want to build with that roster. Like I wouldn't want him with Julius Randle, for example. I don't think that defensively that's going to do. I don't think you're going to stop anybody, especially with Kobe Bryant on the wing for a year. I just don't see that being successful.
If the Knicks still had Tyson Chandler, that would work.
Yeah, now that would be really interesting all of a sudden. And then I've argued maybe Philadelphia, if they want to add another big, Noel would be a good buffer on the inside for him. Offensively, I mean, you really can't complain about him offensively just because he's so good in the paint area. And when you can take easy points like that as an offense, you will every time. He's a good passer out of the post as well. So I just worry about him defensively. Is he kind of a dinosaur? Obviously, his length is going to help make up for some of the quickness issues. I definitely think he's a top 5 pick. It's just a matter of fit, which is kind of, I mean, you can pretty much argue that for a lot of specialty type bigs like him. Like, because Porzingis is kind of like that too.
Yeah, Okafor's defensive questions, like that's the biggest question mark among the top prospects. Because there's that thing where I guess Coach K and Duke told him stay out of foul trouble and all that stuff. But I don't know. Matt, there's a feedback on yours.
Oh, what's up?
There's like I'm hearing myself twice where I was.
Oh, okay, I'll fix it.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to like interrupt everything. My bad, everybody. But no, Okafor has the post potential to be like a dominant player, and he's got the passing where if they wanted to run a four out one in set, it can make a difference on all these teams, and they can pretty much get whatever they wanted to get. But his defense is such an issue that I don't know what team in the top 5 can survive with him at center. Maybe Philadelphia, just because they have Noel and they have some defensive players, but Okafor is so bad defensively. He's got to shed some weight, and his body's not great.
You can't really play him with, although I guess they're not going to have this problem next year. I don't think you can really play him with Embiid, can you? Like, that just takes up too much space.
You could, I guess. Like, if Embiid's jumper's for real, which I'm not even sure that Embiid's for real. Like, I don't even know if he exists. Like, I feel like Embiid's like that guy who we think exists, but never, like, no one ever sees. So, Embiid catfished the entire NBA right now. That's what's happened. So, I mean, they could play together theoretically. It's just,
yeah.
I don't know if it would work.
Yeah, like he's still like kind of like a magical aura that you're not really sure what's real.
Right, exactly.
Matt, have you got any thoughts on, as we didn't get your Embiid takes, what's your Okafor ones?
I mean, just with well, I mean, first of all, going back to, I mean, the pick for, because this is one thing to think about LA is just, if they were going to go 0-4, I mean, that pairing of Randall and 0-4, it's just, centers are going to kill you in the paint. They're going to kill you offensively. So I'm just, I think it's a risk for them to take 0-4 there. I mean, I know the latest thing was that they were going to take D'Angelo Russell, so we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think you have to take Russell.
Or the thing with Lakers now that it sounds like it's they're saying they want to take Russell, the Kings want to take Okafor. There was a trade, so they're like forcing a trade. But then lots of people are saying that the Lakers should take Russell if the Kings were to trade because that would be a better fit with Carl. I don't know. Maybe we should talk about Russell. Ian should be back in a minute, but he really likes him. I've got questions with how he finishes with his right hand and just kind of like what his elite trait is. Like, I like his passing vision, but I don't think he can be kind of like your lead point guard. I think he's got to be like spelled. I can't envision him like being the point guard for past 20 minutes. And then, like, defensively, they hit him all the time, so I don't really know what he is defensively. And, yeah, just, like, how I think he does that, like, 2-dribble jumper and then finishes with his left every time. I think that's kind of easier to defend in the NBA when kind of people get down your tendencies and have, like, sports for you to track kind of these things. And you can just see, I know, like, Shane Battier talks about that a lot, about defending Melo. It's just like knows which way he's going to turn every time. So you're taking out any of like the questions. But he seems to be like Twitter's like darling. So I don't know. Am I kind of like being too harsh on him?
No. This draft is so weird because the top like 4 to 5 guys, even the top 3, if you want to just say it's Okafor, Russell, and Towns, like. They basically they were the 3 best players in college basketball this past year. Maybe you can throw Kaminsky as arguably up there with them, but they were the 3 that captivated everybody. And with Russell, I think he's so dynamic that I just don't see how some teams can pass on him. I don't see how the Lakers can pass on him for Okafor. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm trying to think of of how to phrase it better. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words right now. This is how I can't even think.
What's the comp for him? 'Cause is it like a Monte Ellis? Like that's kind of what I think he.
For Russell?
Yeah.
No, I mean, he shoots better than Ellis. That's the thing. Like he shoots better than Ellis does. There's been the Steph Curry thing thrown around. There's the James Harden thing just because he's left-handed. If I had to put someone for him, I'm trying to think.
See, this is the thing with comps. You just do like the player at that position. If they're the best player, you do the best player professionally at that position.
Right, and someone that looks like him in some ways.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd almost want to say like a better shooting Tyreek Evans.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Which is like a pretty good player.
Yeah, like people forget Tyreek Evans' rookie year. Uh, he was like one of only like a handful of people to go like 25-5.
Oh yeah,
Which
two people that don't forget that rookie year.
no, but it's crazy though. Like you look at his rookie year, it's like Oscar Robertson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, the only other three players to go 25-5. Like that's crazy.
I think if you look at those two, what's those two draft classes, or maybe it's three, and the Kings could have a starting lineup of Tyreek, Caspi, Isaiah Thomas, Whiteside, and Cousins. And that's a pretty good starting five from
Yep.
three draft classes.
Yeah, well, they obviously didn't want to keep Whiteside, which I can't blame them.
No.
I mean, he didn't do much until he went overseas.
And even, yeah, and he's just like insane. He seems to be fully motivated by 2K ratings, which is kind of great, but
And weird at the same
Yeah.
time.
and that's been something since he was with the Kings. He's been talking about it, so it's like nothing new. But yeah,
Some people, man, some people.
Ian, do you want to talk a bit about Russell? Because I know you're a fanboy. I'm questioning his like offensively whether he's that good in the NBA really. Like
Yeah.
being only able to shoot with like finish with one hand and kind of he seems to like do the same like two dribbles, jumper or like open freeze in transition. Or am I just I don't know.
So I really like Russell. Overall, just I'd probably put him number one, and that's a little bit different too. Again, with the value of bigs and guards, but he's really interesting because I was listening to a podcast by Chad Ford last night and Zach Lowe, and he had mentioned how he was the only player to show up in like the most likely to bust list, and also like the highest or like the best analytical player too. So like in two forms of analytics, he was liked and then also kind of disliked. He's not super athletic, and he, like you said, he can only finish with one hand. So I think those are two issues that you hopefully want to see improvement, especially with finishing with his left hand. But other than that, though, I really don't have any concerns about him. I think he's athletic enough to do just fine. He's got a really good first step, and he can turn the corner on guys pretty effectively, especially when he's working in like the mid post area. Shooting wise, he didn't do well in big games, but I think he can do whatever. I mean, I don't really see an issue with him off the dribble or as far as, and I mean, I didn't watch a ton of them. Like I said, I just kind of looked at these guys briefly. I
Do you have a
don't.
comp for him?
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you have a comp for him at all?
I'd have to think about it. Let me think about it just for a couple minutes.
This is like, I guess, why I kind of asked that question is like, generally, like when people do a comparison, it's like their elite trait, and you kind of like you compare the elite trait to like a player that also has that elite trait. With Russell, I don't see kind of anything that is like one outstanding way they can beat someone every time. And like because I don't know what he is defensively because I've never seen him against like being strained offensively defensively much. It's like you see a lot of like good college scorers fail in the NBA, and that's kind of like what I think might happen.
Yeah, like I've seen him comp to James Harden, and like within like 2 minutes of watching him, I could see that. Obviously, Harden, what he's become is not what he was coming out, and I think that that's kind of what you hope for Russell to do, become a little bit stronger as far as when he drives at finishing and withstanding contact and drawing the contact. As far as his passing ability, he's just such a tremendous passer. I think that's where really I see the Harden comp is because Harden's just so good at creating for others, and he's such a good shooter that I think that's where Russell's going to open things up because guys can't sag off him. So with his first two steps, he can get around guys enough to draw contact, and then it's up to him at that point to either is he strong enough to withstand that contact, or is he going to be able to continue passing at such a good level?
Yeah, the problem with Russell is he doesn't go right a lot, which, to be fair, Harden doesn't go right a lot either. It like you know where Harden's going, you just kind of can't stop him. But Russell doesn't go to the rim like Harden did or does now. That's why the comp with him's so weird. Like I get the Curry comp that people try to throw around at him because he will just take obscene threes for just ridiculous threes, and he's got the flashy passes and all that stuff. So I get it. It's just I don't know where to go with his overall comp. Like I said, Tyreek Evans better shooting, and I could see that just because Evans was a really good athlete, but I think he played below the rim a lot in some ways, and that's how I look at Russell. I don't know. Personally, I find Russell to be the most fluid player in the draft. I think if you draft D'Angelo Russell, like you said, his first step's great. He's going to get by the initial defender just because of his first step. He's got great recognition, spatial recognition for passing. His passes are always on point. He can put English on the passes to get him wherever he needs to go. He's the one guy that I think if you take him in the top 3, you're not going to regret. And that's a big deal. Like I think if you take him, you're not going to be 5 years down the road. I don't think you're going to have the conversation like, oh, do we want to re-sign him? I don't think that's going to be a conversation that you have to have.
So I guess we took everyone kind of has these as the top 3, I guess. Or that's the consensus. So maybe should we just I have Winslow third personally. But maybe who do you think So it sounds like the Knicks are desperate to sell out of this. If you were a team, who would you be going up to 4th with if the 2 bigs and Russell are out? Maybe if you want to go for that first, Matt.
I mean, if the medical was aside and there was no issue, I love Willie Cauley-Stein. Just his defensive prowess and what I think he can be. I think if you can improve the shooting, I just love what he can be as a big man. But outside of that, I mean, either 2 international guys. I mean, it's the same thing for me with baseball, kind of. I'm always enamored with these international players, just what they're able to do. And it's just either one of those guys with their immense upside and how young they are, especially Mario is just, I mean, some call it cockiness, but I mean, it's kind of like Yasiel Puig to me. I love that confidence he has. So either one of those 3 guys, aside from Willie Cauley-Stein's foot thing, I love.
Would it shock you guys that I don't have Okafor in my top 4?
No, I can kind of see that just with how people especially what the Golden State Warriors did, and that finals where it was all about defense. It kind of I can see how you can put if you were constructing a team, you want to be defensively minded, and when you're getting a pick, you want to have a 2-way player, not just someone you have to cater for. I can see that, but
pretty sure I don't either. Pretty sure I've got him.
I still have him too, maybe because I saw DeMarcus, and he reminds me of how DeMarcus's game looked, where he's more refined offensively and was limited the same way DeMarcus was. So maybe I'm putting too much into the 10% chance that he can turn into DeMarcus. I'm I've seen that 10% work, so maybe that's why I'm being more positive on him. Whereas I've seen point guards that have questions about or scorers like Jimmer and stuff. So I've seen that. So then that's why maybe I'm down on Russell, because it's I've seen one way work and I haven't seen the other way work. So just from my personal experience, I would look at Winslow 3 though. I think he's could be Kyrie Leonard or Jimmy Butler. He's a hybrid of those guys already, I think.
On my big board, I have Towns, Porzingis, Russell, 1 through 3, and that's a little bracket for me, a tier of guys that I would pick over others. And then my 4 through 7 is basically Moutier, Okafor, Turner, Hazonia. And it's those guys are in a tier themselves. I don't this draft just has so many guys in little tiers where it's you can't go wrong with a guy. I think Miles Turner's a guy I think's getting slept on just because
he never played.
He never
They-
played because Rick Barnes hated him. Like Rick Barnes hated because Rick Barnes hates underclassmen unless it's Kevin Durant. And it's like I don't think Rick Barnes knows what he's doing, so he kind of just didn't play him as much as he needed to. Like there was the tournament game where he was making a difference, and then Rick Barnes sat him, and was like, "Why? What are you doing?"
And he's weird because he's not like a big man where he needs to be open to shoot a free. He's got his like release is really quick.
Yeah, I like his jumper. Like when people bring up Kaminsky at 4, for instance, to the Knicks, it's like, okay, if you want a guy who can shoot a mid-range jumper, Miles Turner's there. He's going to play better defense too.
And there was that he like shot like a 30-footer or something, like from the top of the tee. That was like he's got range.
He's very comfortable stepping out, like especially at the top of the arc. He's very comfortable stepping out and taking shots. And I mean, the one thing against Miles Turner is he runs weird. Like that's like he, and I always keep saying this. It looks like he's dragging his legs behind him, so he might have hip issues. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I haven't looked at the medicals.
I think I heard somewhere that like in a workout he's been like working on that, and he was like running more smoothly, but still weird. So
yeah, I mean, I like Turner a lot. I don't think the difference between Okafor, for instance, like the difference to me between Towns and Okafor is larger, or the gap I should say is larger between Towns and Okafor to me than it is from like Okafor to Turner. Because I do trust Turner's defense that much and his rebounding. And the one thing that never gets talked about Okafor is for as great as people say he is, the one thing he does not do very well is he does not box out on the defensive glass. Like that's a big problem for him.
do you think that was for like foul trouble reasons? Like they just didn't want him to be like anywhere near bodies?
It could be just because he was so much larger than people. The college referees just assumed big guys were fouling little guys. But he really, like, guys were going over him to grab rebounds because he was rooted to the floor. Like, he would not jump. So I'm interested to see if he does now, like in the NBA, he's able to jump more and, you know, go after these rebounds like he really wanted to. I mean, I think Turner's ability to be a shot blocker and rebounder is probably one of the most underrated aspects among prospects. Like during the year, I think Turner blocked, I want to say like twice as many shots as Okafor did, but did it in like, I want to say like 2/3 of the minutes, which is absurd.
Yeah, it's weird. He's got like, has he got like some injury issue as well or something? Because I always thought that was the reason why he was on like the bottom, like of the like the end of the lottery. Because otherwise, I don't understand why he's.
He did have some health issues. I don't remember fully what they were. I know he had some health issues though.
Well, Ian, who would you move up for then at 4 if you had to go for anyone? And the bigs and Okafor and Russell are off.
So in my mock, I've got I did Towns 1, Russell 2, then Porzingis to the Sixers. Obviously, if Okafor goes before that, then I think Winslow, to me, is one of the 4 best players in this draft, and I think he's a natural fit with what the Knicks want to do. He's just a guy that, like, you know, I know Jimmy Butler gets mentioned a lot as his comp, and I think that's pretty natural. I mean, you watch him play; he's a very good defender. He can defend 3 positions at least. Offensively, he's pretty good inside the 3-point line. I think his shot is going to develop and continue to get better. Can he create on his own? I think maybe is something that you want to see continue to improve. But really, he's got everything that you want in a modern-day wing, and that's extremely important. I mean, the wing position is arguably one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable, in the NBA right now. Most of the great teams have a really good wing player. So I think he's a guy that I would take him over Okafor. I would take him over Porzingis if it was my team. Again, it's a kind of a question of fit because he's offensively not. I don't think he's going to carry the load for you. So he's going to be a little bit more of a complementary piece, which is kind of why I like that fit with the Knicks.
Well, for me, if you're running a triangle, Hazonia is like the perfect fit, and like it's just like and So I don't understand why they're moving out when they can take him at 4.
Do you think Hazonia is J.R. Smith? Because I get that feel when I watch him. Like, he looks like J.R. Smith to me.
I've had that. I've seen him. I saw him live like a year ago, and he is just ridiculously arrogant. It is hilarious.
He seems arrogant. Like, everything he says just screams ass. Like, but it's great.
And he's just going to be like, if he's on the same team as Melo, it's going to be so fun to watch, like, them fight over fourth quarter isolations. It's just going to be, or like if he went to the Kings and like him and Gay just fighting after fourth quarter isolations, it would just be like, they'll just be literally trying to do dribble handoffs, just ripping the ball out of each other's hands. But I don't know. I think he's just like, that like shooting ability and that size and just athleticism, like he's like a modern player as well. Like, he has no mid-range game. It's at the rim or 3-pointers. There's nothing in between. Like, so I guess that's like the JR comp is literally, although JR barely goes to the rim.
The one thing I like about Hazonia is, at worst, he should be Marco Bellinelli. And that's not bad. Like, his attitude can be an issue, and that's why going to the right system is a big deal for him. I do like him in Detroit.
It's like, if he doesn't have that, like, you kind of need to have motivated players as well. You see so many guys fail because they're not driven. And it's like, for as much as like DeMarcus gets ripped for his attitude, it's not like he's punched anyone. He just gets pissed off at like people beating him up all the time. Yeah. But he's like become really good because of that, like being an angry guy.
Like, the 2 international guys this year, Porzingis, who I absolutely adore. I have him too on my big board. I love him. I love everything. Like, you don't see 7-1 guys able to play like him. And
do you want to talk about, because I haven't got a feel for him at all. So do you want to like say why you like him? Because I'm like lost.
It's really funny because when I've seen footage of him, I've watched basically 3 games of his, and obviously a lot of footage just on his. And if I had to describe him, he always gets the Dirk and Pau Gasol comps just because European guys and all that stuff. He reminds me of a less athletic Durant when Durant came out. He looks everything he does is smooth and fluid. He gets a shot off miraculously in different ways. Out of the post, I love his post fadeaway. He's not strong. He's not a strong guy. He's not going to be backing people down and going post hooks over them like Okafor is. But he is going to be able to score in the post with his fadeaways, which is kind of where the Dirk stuff comes in for some of it. Now, the issue with him is he ready now? And I think he can play now. I don't think he'll be great right away. I think his defense is good as a rim protector. I don't think it's great straight up. I think he's an okay passer. He does turn the ball over quite a bit. He does have some issues with traveling. If you watch him when he gathers steps on a pass on the perimeter, he does look like he travels, which can be an issue in the NBA. Referees are going to call that. But I love him. I love his game. I said it a couple days ago. He's the freak of the draft. If you were developing a guy in a science lab that was like able to be tall as hell and could score and shoot from anywhere, it's Porzingis.
His frame's kind of similar to Durant, like a stretched Durant. So I can kind of see that like the shoulder.
He's lanky. He uses his length to his advantage. It's not like he's hampered by the fact he's long. He's got a soft touch. When the ball hits the rim, he gets great rolls just because of the backspin on his shots. He might be, and there's word that's come out today. It's like he might not go in the top 5, but I don't see how teams in the top 5 pass on him if Towns and Okafor and Russell are gone. Like, I wouldn't take Moutier over him.
If the Bucks could get him, that'd be pretty fun. Because then his length kind of works.
Yeah, because they need more length.
And shooting. Some shooting.
Yeah, but the Hazonia thing, like, this is the thing with the international guys. Like, Hazonia's arrogant because he wants to succeed and he thinks he's the best, which is fine. And the thing I love about Porzingis is he wants to be in the gym. He's not one of those European players or just players in general who plays basketball just because he likes basketball and then he gets kind of burned out. Like, he generally wants to get better. And he wants to keep
And like both
practicing.
his parents were players, weren't they, or something like that? So I guess
Yeah.
it's like bloodlines or whatever.
Yeah, he's got a good foundation. Like, that's the thing. He's got a good foundation. The one thing that I love about him that I think will endear him to the NBA fans over in the United States is when you hear him talk. If you were just to hear him talk, if you didn't see him, if you just heard him talk, you would think he was born here. And that's a big deal to some of the United States fans is when they get an international player selected to their team, it's kind of like they don't understand him, so they can't, make the connection. But you're going to make a connection to Porzingis.
Maybe that helped playing in. He played in Spain, right? Last.
Yeah, he played in Spain.
So maybe that could help. Swear.
Well, he said he learned. I believe I read an article where I think he said he learned English at a younger age just because he really did want to play in the NBA.
Oh, that can make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe like as a kind of like closer proximity to Europe, it's like English is like most places speak it. It's not that kind of rare. They're only like when people don't want to talk to tourists, they'll pretend they can't speak it, kind of thing. I tried that in London, but it's a bit harder to get away with. I guess so. It's like I guess Mudiay is kind of like the next kind of like consensus guy that we haven't like got onto yet. It's like there's nowhere that kind of like is a fit for him, unless like you don't. I mean, maybe we can just get into like Kings talk as well now. So Matt, like, do you think like he would be a pick for the Kings? With like, I guess we've been sold like they need a pass-first point guard. So like having another point guard that can't shoot, like that's like what a pass-first point guard is now, right? It's someone that can't shoot. I don't know. But what's your take on Mudiay? Because like he's again like another guy. I've like liked bits of it, like, but I just don't really have a feel for him at all. I haven't seen enough, or like seen the good or bad enough to kind of have a full picture.
I mean, with the Kings and with their plans at point guard, it's so hard to read. I mean, there was the talk about Carl badly wanting Ty Lawson. There's obviously Mudiay's been brought up, although I think he's probably a little further down their board behind some international guys and trading down. I mean, but still, I mean, what you mentioned, the whole pass-first thing about point guards who can't shoot, it's just, with this team, damn it. Just...
Boogie has our best three-pointer percentage, 50%. I think it was like 8 for 4 or something like that from 3-point. So.
Oh joy! Yeah.
And then the rest are like under 34%, something ridiculous. Although I think like
available.
Although Omri Caspi did do well for the Kings as a starter. I think he shot like 50% from 3 as a starter.
Okay, yeah, everyone like shot better threes, I think, other than Ben. After Carl, and like like Ben had a run at the beginning, and then he was just getting minutes like into the floor because like Carl wasn't playing Stauskas at all, so like Ben was playing like 40 minutes a game basically, and just dying.
See, I like Caspi as the small ball 4 because he can rebound. He's a good rebounder for someone on the wing. So Mudiay, or a point guard in general, would make some sense. A guy who can actively find people. If they were to go 4 out, 1 in with Cousins at the center, you can run a pick and roll and get. And Cousins is such a good passer himself that he, like, if you were to, for instance, on the pick and roll, if Mudiay finds Cousins on the roll and Cousins gets doubled on the roll, he can find wing shooters. So you're able to do things with them. As far as Mudiay is concerned, I like him, don't love him. I liked him earlier in the year before his injury. I don't know how much his injury really hampered him after that. It hampered him quite a bit. But the one good thing to like with Mudiay, going forward for any team, including the Kings, is he was going to play college ball at SMU before the grade issue happened, which made him ineligible. He was forced to go overseas. But the good thing for him overseas was he did play against Stephon Marbury quite a few times. And Marbury's better than any of the college players that the other guys went up against. So he got a trial by fire, and he is used to the monotony of traveling, like in the NBA. He had to take plane flights, trains, etc. in China. Play all these games in a short period of time. It wasn't like college where you got the kind of drawn out weeks where you're able to take 4 and 5 days off sometimes. So Moutier might be better prepared now for the NBA than some of these other guys. But the one thing I don't like about him, his jumper's bad. It's not good.
It's not like Peyton bad, but yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah, it's not Peyton. Nothing's Peyton bad. Nothing's Peyton bad. But it's not good. And there are times where he flashes the ability to make the jumper, especially from 3. It's just he needs so much room and work on the jumper. He doesn't look comfortable taking it, which is a problem. Which is kind of like Marcus Smart. Like Marcus Smart last year didn't look comfortable taking jumpers. He just took them.
I think at least like with the Kings, you can play like 2-point guards as well with Collison, and he like played pretty like the only times that Sessions looked reasonable in a Kings uniform was when Collison was playing, where they were playing like 2-point guards, and he would basically just pass it to Collison straight away. But that was more just Sessions being awful. But like kind of Collison like worked well as like and he did that kind of with the Clippers as well, where he would play like off ball quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I think like at least he's used to that role where you can. And Carl's talked about. I mean, even if Carl is even the coach, who knows? But he's talked about playing 2-point guards.
Yeah, one of the things Carlson did well for the Clippers was when Chris Paul was out, he really initiated the offense well too. He just needed guys around him who could shoot, which I think was the big deal. Guys who could at least take some of the pressure off of them.
Yeah, he kind of needed that. Like when his offense was good was when he was like getting into the lane and taking mid-range jumpers with the Kings. That's like that when he started hitting those, then like his offensive game like opened up because they had to like in the pick and roll they had to bring that big in front of him to stop him, and then kind of like everything opens around him. The paint's just not clear. Yeah,
he's a good player. I just don't think he was utilized. Like the Kings were good in the beginning of the year, obviously, and their starting 5 of Collison, McLemore, Gay, Thompson, Cousins was like one of the best 5-man lineups in basketball this year. It's just Collison started getting injured. Cousins had issues with health and stuff. It's just honestly, I think they just need cohesiveness. They just need like you need to like you can't just keep swapping parts out. That's not how it works. You got to keep some guys together.
Like everyone was talking about how that roster was going to get churned last year, and they made one trade, but obviously 3 head coaches, so they went for a different type of churning, and then we may be going for another. We may be going for another head coach pretty soon.
It's like like the Kings were like the Titanic, always changing the captain, and they just kept like running into the iceberg.
Oh, this is like it's like a different rerun. So we're changing what the iceberg is every time. So this time we're just like going into a massive cat or something.
Yeah, Mike Malone was steering you away from the iceberg. Mike Malone was steering you away from the iceberg. George Karl just sped up. Like is what happened.
This is like a hovercraft going through like the long grass, and there's like hits a snake.
Speaking of snakes, DeMarcus Cousins is tweet.
So I've had probably like 8 hours sleep trying to not miss when some DeMarcus Cousins shit happens, which I managed to sleep through like the wash bomb that was ended up being nothing. All right, okay, maybe this is like a good way to do it. If you were the Kings, what would you be asking for him if he really has like put in his trade request and like you don't want to pay the $9 million or whatever it is to fire Karl, and like Cousins just saying he's not turning up? What would you get? Like, is it like what would you accept, or what would you go? Let's say what would you accept, like realistically? So maybe I guess like Ian, do you want to do this? Because you've kind of like as a Cavs fan, you've kind of gone through like the last kind of mega trade, even though like Love wasn't under contract in the same way as DeMarcus, which is like a huge like defining element, but it's kind of like similar, but that was like a perfect storm with LeBron and shit. But maybe if you want to kind of, what would be a mega deal? Because I find it really hard to even contemplate one.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find a fair trade for him. Talent-wise, there's just not many teams that can really offer something that is competitive for both teams and also works salary cap-wise. If they were to work something out with the Lakers, which just seems insane just to think about, not only because Kings and Lakers rivalry, but also just because just to be able to get just be able to give that team, give that franchise another franchise center, it's just crazy to wrap your head around. But if that's someone that they really want to do a deal with, I mean, they've got the pieces. They've got the number 2 pick. They've got obviously Julius Randle. I wouldn't take anything less than that. I would also push for Jordan Clarkson, who is one of the only decent pieces that's young on the Lakers, and I would just be firm. I'd be firm with that. And honestly, I don't even know. I would lean towards taking that if the situation's so bad where you just can't have Cousins anymore, but it's hard to know what to believe. Honestly, I'd rather get rid of George Karl before I got rid of Boogie, I think. I mean, although that's a whole nother can of worms that you're opening up, considering what they've been through as far as personnel people in the last year and a half. Um, someone else had sent me a trade offer that was like a Wizards. It was Bradley Beal, Porter. I think they had Gortat in like the 19 pick too. That might be overpaying a little bit for Boogie.
I think you need Gortat for the salary, probably.
Okay, so then
Like,
yeah,
as
maybe
a replacement.
so then maybe you drop. Well, yeah, it depends on how the salary works out, but I think that's the type of offer that you'd really be looking for. Is you're getting a solid player in Gortat. You're getting a potential stud who really hasn't worked out so far with Bradley Beal, and then Porter, who is kind of on the upswing. I mean, it's still a pretty risky deal because Porter, in large part to this point, has been pretty much a non-factor. Bradley Beal's been more hype than substance so far. Gortat's pretty good, but I mean, he's nothing crazy special. So
And
I think
he's
it's
way better by
that type
WAR
of
than
deal, though.
anything else. Like, that pick and pop is like why he's good, like, or that's just like 3 points for him. I don't know.
Right.
So whether he's as good with whoever the Kings have at point guard then. Like, I guess, Matt, what would you, like, I guess you've been thinking about this a lot, but what would you, like, accept as a Kings fan for Boogie?
Well, first of all, if the Lakers are calling and telling me that Julius Randle's not going to be in the deal, I'm laughing at them for about 5 hours on the phone, calling them back and laughing again because that's just ridiculous. But I mean, if you're talking about dealing with LA, at minimum, number 2 pick, I'm going to ask for all three: Clarkson, Randle, number 2 pick. Lakers, if you want a franchise centerpiece free agents will come and play with who Kobe wants to be with, you're going to give me that. If not, I'll go to Orlando. I'll talk to someone else, maybe Denver, or I'll just keep DeMarcus Cousins because I'm not listening to your offers that don't involve anything less.
Okay, so with the Lakers trade, do you fire Carl as well? Because why does he want a roster with like 6 players that have 1 year playing in the NBA? Like, I don't understand why Carl would want that roster. So, I mean, to me, it's like you give him a bunch of rookies, you're basically just like, I don't see that working either. He's just going to pay like Costa Koufos, like they'll sign him for $2 million, play him for 30 minutes over playing it like Okafor, right?
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, if it came down to it, obviously it's not my choice to make, but I'm firing Carl anyway. For him to tell to Vivek and Vladi that I'm not going to go. I don't want to trade DeMarcus Cousins. I want to build around him, and then promptly try and trade Cousins and go to behind players' backs reportedly. I'm sorry, I don't want that person as my coach. I don't want someone who's going behind the back of my star player and is trying to go against the owner's word of what he told the owner. And frankly,
So
I just
with, like, remember like the first game Carl played and like the stadium was, or like coached, and the stadium was like roaring. And now like if he's coaching even summer league, I think there's just going to be like boos if he's on the sideline.
It will be loud boos.
Half a year, and just literally the fans have turned on him so much. I think that's like with the Kings, it's like not much has gone right. Boogie's gone right. So if you do anything to hurt Boogie, you're dead to us.
Yep.
Justin, have you got like any
Yeah.
trade for something that would work.
The one team that I actually do think would make some sense that could actually maximize assets for the Kings would be trading him to Orlando. I would trade him to Orlando. Like, the baseline I would accept in a deal is, like, you got to get back at least a player for now and at least 2 comparable assets for the future. Like, you can't just trade him for 2 veterans because, as much as it sucks to hear, like, I don't think Sacramento's going to make the playoffs next year with, like, Lawson and Faree. Like, that's just not yeah, you're going to be stuck in purgatory. Yeah, you're going to be stuck in that place that Houston was like a couple of years ago, like picking 12th through 14th over and over and over.
And by the way, on that, if they pick 12 to 14th, Chicago owns the pick.
Yeah, there you go.
We've got the 2 more years to like keep that for it to turn into 2 second rounders. Oh, that'll be so good. And we have Caspi back, who we traded out with that. It's just that's the most mental trade ever. How that's still alive. Anyway,
the assets though the assets would be like Vucevic. Would be like, it has to be like, because Vucevic and Cousins aren't going to play together.
Nope.
And so I get back Vucevic at least for a little bit of the
Vucevic though, if he's wanting to get rid of Boogie, maybe we have to understand, is it like personality or is it playing style? Like, I guess that's the big question.
Well, Vucevic can step out and hit jumpers better than Cousins can. Like, that might be the big thing for Carl, at least for spacing wise. Cousins is obviously the better center, but Vucevic might be the better jump shooter in some ways. But if you get Vucevic back, you can also get, like, let's say number 5 this year and the Lakers pick for 2017. If Orlando really, because there's that rumor that Orlando really wants to give up Channing Frye just to create more space, I would seriously tell them, like, I'll take Channing Frye off your hands for the money, but you're going to have to give us your first-round pick next year, too. And I think Orlando would do it just to get Cousins. Because, I mean, they'd have Peyton, Oladipo, Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon, and DeMarcus Cousins. And I think that would be enough for them, especially in the East.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd work. I think they're definitely the team in which there's like the most kind of assets where if they wanted to go for him, they could. I've kind of like, if for whatever reason, I guess this is like premised on like a lot of things, but the trade that made sense in my head was kind of like a combination of like a bunch of them. So it would be like, unfortunately, the Lakers would get him. They'd also send Randall and a future first, which I think would have to be 2019. So that would go to the Magic. The Magic could also get number 2, and Vucevic would go to the Kings. And then the Kings would trade number 5, which they'd get from Magic, and they would trade that for Bledsoe. So you'd end up with like a future Lakers pick, Bledsoe, Vucevic, and Randall. And then that's like, at least you've got kind of like, you're upgrading 2 positions, and it's not like a horrific downgrade in another, but whether like the Suns want to go to 6, or like go to 5. I know I guess that must be like Nick's bait to talk that the 4th pick for Bledsoe. And then obviously now we've heard like Vucevic is kind of off the table for getting up to 2, but I'm not sure how they would play Vucevic and Okafor if that's who they're trying to get up for at 2. So like that, I mean, I could understand that. You get like a future asset, you're getting actual players, and also you have that rookie, so you can get Willie Cauley-Stein as well to like help defensively. With Vucevic, you still have Darren Collison, you still have like Nick Stauskas to trade, so you kind of have like, you're building some depth there. I think if you're getting rid of like a player of Cousins' quality and you're not getting like a top 15, 10 player back, you need to get like the next 3 best players in the trade. And I'd rather like a couple of them have actually played in the NBA at like a high level and be like proven in that way. Because that's the issue with like the Lakers deal, is like there's 1/4 of basketball in that deal, unless you had Clarkson. But I mean, I don't think Clarkson's playing over Collison personally. I don't know. So should we go like some? We can talk about Kings more. I don't know.
Well, I'm not a big Clarkson fan. Like, I think he's good. I just thought he got overrated just because A, he was on the Lakers, and B, that team was so bad. Someone had to score, get assists, and get rebounds. Like it's the Michael Carter Williams thing, but not as pronounced. Is how I look at it.
And if he wasn't on the Lakers, if he was anywhere else, no one would be even thinking he was
Like,
anything.
if he was on, for instance, if he was on Minnesota, would anyone have cared?
Right. I think it's one of those things where it's like asset collection, where if he has any perceived value, I think that if that's the deal that they want to go towards, I think it's just like that would be more of like an asset thing where you can maybe flip him shortly after, because that's really a team that's lacked those type of trade assets. But I largely agree, though. I watched a couple of their games, and I was just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a point guard driven league, it's like this guy isn't really that special. It's interesting that you brought that up.
Right. Well, it's funny, and the reason I brought up Minnesota is because, like, Zach LaVine, his last 20 games with Minnesota, you look at Zach LaVine's last 20 games last year, it was like he averaged, I think, like 18, 5, and 5. He shot like 47, 39, 80 something from the line. It's like, in what ways is that better than Jordan Clarkson? Like, it's not. I mean, like, it's a loads better than Jordan Clarkson was, and like that's the thing. I think Clarkson just got overrated because he was on the Lakers, and because like Kobe's out, so some guard had to score. And that's not meant to say like I don't like Jordan Clarkson as a player. I think he's going to be a solid rotational guard, which those guys last. Ask Kirk Heinrich and Luke Rittenauer. Those guys last in the league.
And I guess it's like with KJ McDaniels, it's like he was huge news in Philly, then went to Houston and didn't play a second. So there's a couple of new Kings reports. There's one from Aaron Bruski, who is like pretty in depth, like with the Kings, and he's told Carl isn't going anywhere soon. And there's Mark Stein saying that the dismay about George Karl is coming more from Vlade than it is Vivek. So considering how harsh Vivek, like those words from Vivek were coming, if Vlade's more pissed off. I mean, like, and I guess Vlade's bigger, so maybe he's a bit scarier when he's pissed off. So maybe that's kind of the...
Just to throw this out there,
Yeah.
Would you consider trading if, just let's say you keep Cousins, obviously Cousins and Eric Bledsoe are great friends. If it made Cousins happier, would you consider trading the 6th pick for Eric Bledsoe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody you get at 6 is going to outplay Bledsoe for the next 2 years.
And and you have him for what, like 4 years under that contract? I mean, I guess the thing is as well, you have to have a third team take on some of King's contracts. You probably have like Landry going out, so then that's like helpful. And maybe if you get the 13th pick back, maybe this is a good way to lead into like the next bunch of players. And I guess we don't need to go through everyone, but kind of like, there's another thing saying Sam Amick, who was like a former Kings beat writer as well, he's saying the Vivek Vlade dynamic is much healthier than the Vivek Pete D'Alessandro one. So that's kind of interesting as well. But it's like apparently Vlade's not said like being completely tight-lipped because Pete D'Alessandro was just like a vomiting sauce pit.
Yeah, we know he's doing that right now.
You know, the first time I ever heard about Vivek Ranadive was a little over a year ago on an HBO Real Sports episode, right after he bought the Kings. It was a really cool story. I like anyone who doesn't like him, I think should watch the story. That guy is probably one of the most driven guys in the league in terms of owners. So
he's like passionate. He like cares about it. Like he actually cares about basketball, not like about the fashion of owning a team or something.
Right, and sometimes that's not always good just because he wants things to turn around so quickly, and so he's much more hands-on than sometimes he should be. But I'd rather have that guy than the Maloofs.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You know, like, come on. That's why when people complain about him, I'm like, I'd rather have that guy who cares than someone who doesn't. As a Clipper fan, I'd rather have Steve Ballmer than Donald Sterling, who didn't care and wanted to cut costs. So that's just how I look at it.
It's interesting to bring that up because, I mean, Al Hassan was talking about this a couple months ago, how he viewed like the Kings as like, this is kind of what's happened recently with a lot of new owners, in the NBA. Like they'll come in just super aggressive and they want to make such an impact, and they just overdo it. And then over the course of time, they generally start to figure it out. Like you kind of just have to let guys do their job, and that's really the hope for the Kings. Is like hopefully as these new people are settling in, especially with how much turnover they've had, they kind of figure it out and just be like, okay, let's breathe. And hopefully they just don't gut the franchise in the process, because that's the worst thing they could do is panic and take one of these bad offers that are, I'm sure, are out there. Teams have been trying to get. I mean, it's like the Celtics. Like, what are the Celtics going to offer besides draft picks? I don't see that type of offer being enticing to them. Like maybe for Philadelphia, but I
Pizza Guy. You don't know how valuable Pizza Guy is to the Kings.
Oh, the pizza guy.
Close. I mean,
Are you a pizza guy? I'm a pizza guy. I'm sorry, I've watched Kings games this year, so I saw the Ben McLemore commercials and I always cracked up.
he's not as a charismatic Pizza Guy, but he's still young. He might have a breakout Pizza Guy year. I'm holding hope. All right, I think that's enough. I'm gonna have enough horrible thoughts around the Kings, and like, there's so many freaking tweets on my timeline now about just like, I should just mute Vivek, Vlade, Carl, and then I just will have like tweets from 2 days ago on my timeline, nothing else. But there's a Mark Stein saying they're just going to pick at 6 now. So if you're the Kings, who do you pick? After all of this, they're not going to do anything. Carl stays, Boogie stays. Who do you pick at 6? Should we just do this quickly? Ian, who do you pick?
Who's off the board?
Let's say it goes one of the Euros, so you can pick which Euro. The 2 bigs, Russell, and is that everyone? Yeah, there's. You've got one of your choice of Euro, and then everyone else.
If I can, honestly, I still really like Willie Cauley-Stein. You know, I don't know all these medicals and stuff, but I kind of agree with Vlade. Like, dudes are gonna get hurt, and it is what it is. Like, even if he needs surgery, that's not a huge deterrent for me, unless if it's gonna be like a chronic thing with his ankle. I just love his ability to defend. I think he instantly enters the NBA as one of these top-notch defenders. He can just do so much for you, especially as teams go small. He's still a guy that you can have on the court at all times. Like, it doesn't matter. He's got a clear role, and he's so good at what he does. And he's been improving over the course of 3 years. So it's like, I still think he would be a guy. I think he's a little underrated, even as like a top 10 pick. I mean, if they're talking about him going possibly sliding as far as like the late teens, I just think that's oversight. I mean, most of these rookies aren't going to turn a season around, anyways. So it's like, if you have a guy that misses even half the season, I think that's okay. That doesn't scare me off too bad for this situation.
Right. Like, it's weird. Like, the whole Embiid thing was also like that. It was like, why are you going to pick him? You need someone who can produce now. Well, not really. Like, you know your team's not going to do anything. Like, I'd rather pick a guy who at least has some long-term potential over the guy who's going to help me tomorrow. And with Willie Cauley-Stein, I think he is what he is. But I agree with you. If he's out half the year, it doesn't really stop Sacramento from doing anything. Like, if you have Willie Cauley-Stein, at least it gives you Cousins insurance if you do move him. So at the worst, you have something there. But if I'm Sacramento, I think I go Hezonja, which sucks because you already know you're going to hear that he's another shooting guard for the 3rd straight year, and they picked one, and they drafted Nick Stauskas last year and didn't even play him. But I think Hezonja is different.
And I think he's more of a free, right, as well. Like,
yeah.
Or he's just like a wing. I don't know if there's like a.
He's just a wing, which allows Gay to play the 4 if he wants in small ball. So I just like Hezonja. The other option would be like Justice Winslow. It was like you just pick him and you can do a lot of things with him.
And like, I think he would get the same thing as people saying, you're picking another shooting guard because he's like small, out of shoes. But I think then, like, Gay's talked a lot about playing the 4 next year. And then I think you can even play Winslow against small ball 4s, like his strength and like length. I think he can be like effective. And yeah, you can just switch like 2 to 4 like in small ball pretty much with that lineup. Even though like McLemore's kind of small for, even though he like looks like he's bigger. I think he's like, his standing reach is pretty bad. I don't think Stauskas will be on the team, but he can play like the free as well. So I think that's kind of like, at least it's more interesting, and then you can just go with loads of shooting around, like loads of shooting and guys that can get to the rim around Boogie. I think it'll be Willie Cauley-Stein just because like from day one, and it's so often this way where it's like the guy you hear about first, the only person you hear, although, I mean, the Kings have had a bit more turmoil in between that with the main leaker leaving. But it was like George Karl's guy all the time was Willie Cauley-Stein just because he can do what Derek Williams was doing kind of at the end of the year, rim running and just catching lobs. And then like I think his perimeter defense is like the one area we absolutely sucked. So if you can, like, that's my key. It's like with both Winslow and Willie Cauley-Stein, you're improving your like perimeter defense. And if they like traded down, I'd want to get Bobby Portis because he can kind of do that same thing where he can like defend at least a little better on the perimeter, which would be kind of like, I think that's like if you can have a big that can like move with twos and threes and the perimeter, that's like a huge advantage. And Matt, who would you go for then?
First thing I'm doing is I'm calling Phoenix, seeing if they'll trade me Eric Bledsoe. If that's not going to happen, then I'm going to see if I can trade down a few spots if I'm confident Willie Cauley-Stein will be down around 8, 9, 10, and I'll take him there. But if I'm staying at 6, Mario, and I'm trading Nick Stauskas for whatever I can get.
What do you think here? Cody Zeller? Is that like Stauskas value? Another white guy? Just trades white guys.
Another white guy who didn't play much. Like,
yeah.
That's the one thing.
We'll give you, yeah, that or Olenek. Like, just have like some, like do like a roulette of white guys and just spin them. Everyone, just where they fly, where they land. That's who you get.
The one thing the Kings need to do is get a guy who will do everything it takes to win. That's what. Well, that's also Winslow. Like
Yeah.
during the Duke tournament run, Winslow, even more so than Okafor, was the one guy that you just notice. Like he did everything. He blocked people. He was game changing on defense. He was diving on the floor, making shots, getting to the basket, create. Like that guy did not want to lose. And in some ways, it reminded me a little bit of Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at Kentucky. It was like those guys who did everything it took to win. And those guys are valuable. And they bring positive attitudes to the locker room. Like I think Cousins would love them. And you need someone who wants to be there. You need someone who wants to be there and wants to win. And I think Winslow could be that guy.
Well, that's what I'm praying for. Should we just go through like quickly some like later round guys and like places you'd like to see them play?
Okay.
I think that'd be a nice way just to like kind of, because I mean we've been going for too long. I guess one guy who I think would be kind of interesting is like I think like Trey Lyles on Utah. For me, I think for some reason that kind of makes sense to me. Just kind of like you're taking off some pressure of Hayward's defensively, adding that length, and then you can like switch as well, like a bit more there. And he adds like shooting. I think they need shooting, and I really like Trey Lyles. I think he's going to be just undervalued because he hasn't really had like an opportunity to show like most of his skills. But I think it'll be fun there. And then like Bobby Portis, wherever Bobby Portis goes, I think he'll be good. I don't really see any way he can like. I think when it's like defensive players or like a defensive player that has like some score, like at least one way he can score. I think Bobby Portis can score pretty well in the post. Like I don't see a way in which that player can fail much, even if it's like as a rotational, like a third big. Like that's pretty like a valuable like skill set. Like Matt, are there any later guys you like, Matt?
I mean, honestly, I've just been so focused on the top 10 guys, I haven't even had a chance to look at some of the later guys, so I couldn't.
Great input, Matt. Thanks.
I like Justin Anderson to Cleveland a lot. I think he would fit perfectly with LeBron, especially off the bench, where it's like a guy who can just come in and spot up. I think he would fit perfectly next to LeBron when they go small. Cliff Alexander, I'm really interested to see where he goes, because before the year that was a top 10 guy, and now it's like he might not even go in the first round. If he does go late in the first round, I'm trying to think of like where he could go. San Antonio wouldn't be bad for him off the bench as like a forward center. And the other guy who I just...
What do you think of Christian Wood?
I like him a lot. I think he could go as high as 15 to Atlanta, but he can also go as low as like 40.
He reminds me like he's like a mental like Giannis, but just without kind of like any NBA skills. Is that kind of like a fair? And so I think he might get like drafted higher because he's like mental like Giannis. And I saw Giannis play live in London, like 3 rows back, and he's just insane live. And I can imagine like that, and maybe that's just like confirmation bias where I've seen someone look like that and just do crazy stuff, and so it's like, oh, I've seen that work, and it's incredible.
Like a team like Boston at 28 could pick him.
Yeah,
and it would work. Because they need someone athletic in their front line. Like, they have nobody athletic in the front line. Like, Tyler Zeller's not athletic. Jared Sullinger, if he stays in Boston, isn't athletic, obviously. Kelly Olynyk is, like, as unathletic as you can get. So Christian Wood would at least give them something. And you know what's funny is maybe that's a thing for the Lakers, too, at 27, is if they do pick Russell, which I think they still take Okafor at 2, but to take Russell at 2, if they get Wood at 27, well, there's an athletic guy who can also help you defensively and on the boards, too. Like, there's going to be guys later on in the first round who get picked, like a Rashad Vaughn, who have skills. Like, they're niche guys, but, like, they just got to get to the right spot. Like, so much in the later half of the draft has just ended up in the right situation.
Are there any guys you like in late?
Yeah, you guys hit a couple of them already. I love Bobby Portis. I'm also a huge Bobby Portis fan. I'm a huge Christian Wood fan as far as like relative to where he's supposed to go. I think that late first round, just all of those teams, like you just saw what Tristan Thompson did during the playoffs, and you find those bundles of energy and you find those rebounding specialists. Those guys have a role, even if it's not for a ton of minutes every night. My secret wish is that the Cavs somehow get Bobby Portis, and we trade Tristan Thompson somewhere to kind of offload that salary hit. But I mean, that's probably a pipe dream. I really like Justin Anderson as well. I think he's a little bit older of a guy, but I just think he can be a good, well-rounded player, especially as a role player. As far as fits, I mean, in my mock draft, I had him in the lottery to the Heat, just because like that's kind of where things get really weird in the draft, because you're kind of just trying to fit pieces, and they don't really need a lot right now except for to stay healthy. I think he's a guy that they could kind of groom a little bit. Again, he's a little bit older, so it's kind of limited. I like Kelly Oubre a lot. I think Oubre would be good in like Atlanta. Also, a team like Houston, especially if they're going to be moving on from Terrence Jones. I know that Oubre is more of a wing, like that shooting guard, small forward, but that's really a team that, you know, they're losing Jason Terry. It remains to be seen on that guy they just did his option, Palapanuco or whatever. Who knows if he can even play? So
he's
yeah,
going to be a trade chip, right? Because his contract doesn't, like, none of it's guaranteed until
like October or something.
Yeah. So he's just like trading.
Yeah, so like, I could just see players like that. I mean, I totally agree, with what you guys said. There's so much value in this draft as far as like potential fits. You can even look at.
Have you watched Terry Rozier?
No, I didn't see anything on him.
I've watched. He looks fun. I watched him a bit live, and then he seems like maybe he's like the best like point guard athlete. If not, he's like a bit small, but like just like his explosion is like, if he was just longer, I think he would just be like picked like around where Levine was picked type thing, just because of the way he can fly around. But I don't really know how functional that is. But I think he could be interesting for the Cavs, just 'cause, like, you don't need him to be that functional.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's definitely like the team like their second team needs, and that they can develop because they only need a couple minutes of that short energy. And I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get a chance to see him, but just like that description is definitely something intriguing.
The Cavaliers could also be interested in like one of two guys, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, just because you need a wing defender now. Like, especially like you can't have LeBron defend the number one guy every time anymore. And I think Rondé's probably like I'm going to bring his own name up again, but Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He's what Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was, but like a year older and not as tenacious offensively on the glass. And I think anyone who picks him is going to that's immediately going to be their best wing defender, unless it's Memphis and you have Tony Allen, because then, yeah. But the other guy I really love is Montrezl Harrell. I think, and I don't know how much I fully buy into it, but he could be an Elton Brand type of player, but with just the rebounding and defense, not so much the offense. So teams could, like, if you're anywhere from like 20 to 30, I think you just need role players. Like, no one picked Jimmy Butler going, that guy's going to be our future best player. Like that never happened. So I think Harrell and Jefferson could have their roles ultimately. I think the one team that everyone's kind of interested in is Toronto, because you don't know what to understand with Toronto anymore.
They might trade for Rudy Gay. They've got the assets.
Yeah, that'll happen. Didn't they get rid of Dwayne Casey?
I can't remember.
I don't think
they
did.
Did they? I'm trying to remember.
No.
Oh, no, he's still there. Oh yeah, some of his staff didn't return.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I love that Anderson fit in Cleveland.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Especially if J.R. Smith comes back. Like, just to be able to spell those guys as like a specialist, because you can hide, like, especially if they're gonna go small. Because with Love, when Love resigns, you can easily afford to have a guy like Anderson out there, because all of a sudden you're just kind of on offense. You're just kind of, you can hide one guy, and defensively you can hide Love if a specialist is out there. So I love that.
Lakers are now the front runner for LaMarcus Aldridge per Woj. So does that take them out of the boogie running? I think that'd be.
Yeah. This is what, like, I wanted to bring that up too. How are they going to afford like these 30 guys?
Well, I have interesting thoughts on that, just because that's the Lakers think they can afford everybody, but you know.
It's true.
Chris Broussard, who I cannot stand, though, is apparently reported the Knicks are currently leaning towards Moutier if they stay at 4, Kaminsky if they trade down. He also reported that the Sacramento Kings ownership is contemplating firing George Karl.
Then there's been like 5 tweets after saying, from like Aileen from the SACB saying they haven't even discussed firing George Karl, and Divac is livid about the flood of speculation. So we're just going to have an angry big man in the Kings front office. It's going to go brilliantly.
Oh, by the way, I do think the Lakers could afford Cousins and Aldridge if they trade for Cousins, which might be the reason that they picked up Jordan Hill's team option, was just to make them.
Find it.
I think they picked it up.
No, he's a free agent, I think.
He's a free agent.
Oh no, it's Ed Davis, free agent.
Yeah, Ed Davis opted out of his player option, which is logical.
Wow.
I think Jordan Hill's contract got picked up,
But
like, because that's $9 million right there. What's Cousins make, like 18?
Yeah, I think so.
Like you just have to
Maybe
get somewhere close, you know. And so basically like Jordan Hill 2 and Randall if you really want. Because what the hell are you going to do with Julius Randle if you have Aldridge and Cousins?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you're not going to play him at small forward. At least you better not. Like, that'll be bad. But, yeah, the Lakers just believe they can get everybody. I've learned that a long time ago. And part of my hope is I'm really hoping they sign Aldridge, sorry guys, but they trade for Cousins, and then they sign Rondo. Sorry, I just had a train go by my house. Sorry. But yeah, so because that lineup would be hilarious. It'd be Rondo, Kobe, Nick Young, Aldridge, and Cousins. Oh
Jeez.
man.
I mean, really, what I want to have is the Kings get Rondo, JR, trade Gay for Melo,
Oh God.
Oh, jeez.
and then Ty Lawson for the 6th pick. There you go. Team Snake and Grass.
Oh my god.
I'm really interested to see the deals tonight because we heard like the similar thing in the NFL draft, like, oh, it's about to be crazy tonight. You're not going to believe what's going to happen, and then it was like, this is just kind of boring.
Yeah.
There's
I mean,
going to be a
NBA
trade. There's going to be a
NBA
trade within the
tends to be
first 30 minutes that makes us question humanity.
I hope so. I'm rooting for just mass chaos.
Is it
I love
worth
it.
watching the TV broadcast because of all the trades? Like, you're just not going to know
The
anything.
TV broadcast always lags behind the trade info, and also
Watch
behind the
them.
picks. Like, people always
Yeah.
leak picks like 2 picks in advance, but yeah, it's just the broadcast is just so far behind on the like. You'll see the trade on Twitter, and then you'll see it on the broadcast like 20 minutes later, which is
And
because the broadcast can't just report it. Like, they have to, like, it has to be official for them.
Yeah. It's really
Man,
funny too
like
because
one-
like they'll have like the exact details out on Twitter, and then on TV they'll just be like very vague. Like, yeah, there's some rumors of a trade. Like, it's just really funny. It's unfortunately though too because like I don't like to be on Twitter for the NFL draft, but I feel like it's a must do for the NBA draft. Like, if you want to have any idea of what's going on, you have to be on Twitter.
Yeah, and I hate that. Like, I'm probably gonna mute Woj tonight, just because I don't want the picks to be spoiled in a way. Like,
Yeah,
but
I'm the same way.
but
don't
but
like-
I know
I don't like
because
those things
I remember like 8 years ago you could watch the draft and you had no idea what was gonna happen. Like, every pick was a surprise. Now it's like like 4 picks. Like, I knew who the Steelers were taking accidentally in the NFL draft. And I didn't want to know because I went to close Twitter on TweetDeck and I went to hit X and someone like tweeted the Steelers pick and I was like, God, man, like, really? Like, come on. And it was like 3 to go, like 3 picks to go until the Steelers pick. I was like, man, all right.
I have to do that with live games because we get like a minute lag here, so there'll be like, you'll see like people go whoa, and then like a minute later you then see the play.
And then you're like,
yeah.
whoa.
I guess especially with like adverts when it goes straight to like if you're watching an Eagles game and they're like straight away they're off, and so then it can be like you're still on an ad break and there's like been 4 plays, 5 plays.
Apparently the Utah Jazz are eyeing a return of Paul Millsap in free agency.
Mm.
Which makes me wonder.
Favors was the same report, right?
Yeah, which makes me wonder what could they get from someone for Derek Favors.
It should be able to get a pretty good return for that.
It would be an
that
interesting.
like another Boogie destination. Gobert Favors for Boogie.
I wonder if there's any interest from Philadelphia never moving those assets. Wouldn't that kind of make sense? I mean, they've been stockpiling assets. They can keep them for 3 years. Kind of seems like a decent fit. I mean, obviously they got all those big guys, but I mean,
But
who
I
knows
don't know
what's
if
happening.
Philadelphia wants big contracts yet, though.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I
I
think
think
they might
that's a perfect deal.
trade Noel soon as well, because he's only got 2 more years. Like, do they see them being in a position where they want to have a max contract Noel in 2 years? I'm not that sure.
I think what Philadelphia might do is I think next year they're going to start spending on guys, but I think they're going to do it carefully. Like, I think they're going to spend on role players, so to speak. So we'll see. Philadelphia's weird, and not like the
Yeah.
bad way. Like not like bad weird. I approve of what Philadelphia's doing, honestly.
They're
mean-
fascinating. It really is fascinating to see this happen.
That's probably the most. That was probably the most fascinating story in the NBA this year. Like everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Philadelphia's tanking." It's like, so what? Until Minnesota won the draft lottery this year, they're like the worst team in the NBA hadn't won the draft lottery since '04.
At
So-
least it's a plan. As like a Kings fan, it's nice. It's like if you're gonna suck, like suck with like a direction, and like they have a
Right.
coach that they're gonna stay with, and they have like they're not trying to do like, oh, this next draft pick will be the second guy. Oh no, and then give him 1 year, 3 head coaches, and then dump him and try the next guy. Like that doesn't have like any longevity, especially. And I don't know.
Like one of the things I've always maintained in sports is you never want to suck with bad contracts.
Yeah.
Like because then you're not going to get better. You want to suck with like minimum level contracts just so that at least there's some room for improvement. Like the Knicks sucking is bad because their contracts are bad. At least they were this year. So you never really want that.
Right, before we go on for a year, should we just like say, I guess, like one prediction we think is going to happen today? So, Matt, do you want to go first?
Today, you know what? I'm gonna just for the heck of it. New York Knicks are gonna take Kaminsky at 4, just to watch the world burn.
Ian, have you got a prediction?
I think we'll see 3 trades involving veterans, like 3 notable trades. So I'm not sure of the players. I'm not that smart, but maybe just a random guess. Brandon Haywood, maybe
David Lee?
Ty Lawson. Ooh, yeah, David Lee. I think David Lee might get moved tonight. That's a good idea.
I've said since last month or the last 2 months, I feel like David Lee and number 30 to Philadelphia for just nothing, like a random second rounder.
Yeah, like a highly protected second rounder.
There was someone on like a Kings message board who's like broken news before. I think he got ahead of like the Sessions Andre Miller deal, and he was saying how I think that deal swapping with Landry is like the Kings are trying to do that because then you can stretch provision Landry, and he costs like 2.5 each year, so that like cuts like 12 million or something.
Stretch provisioning Landry though is excessive. Like there's going to be a team that would take him.
He can't
He's
play.
hurt, though.
He's hurt for 6 months, so he's not gonna.
Philadelphia would take him. They wouldn't care.
But then Kings don't have something to dump him with. Like don't have
That's
any
true.
second round picks. Don't have. I mean, oh yeah. I guess Eric Moreland.
His contract is just so bad.
Yeah.
Like Carl Landry and Channing Frye have the same equally bad contract.
Maybe that could be the trade. Just like, here's new bad.
Here's a bad you haven't experienced yet. Oh, we'll swap it. For my prediction, though, I'm going to say Willie Cauley-Stein goes to Detroit or Charlotte just because one of those teams is irrationally going to pick him.
You should put. There's pretty good money on him. I think you can get like. It's like there's better odds him going past 9 than there are before. When I looked at like this, it was like an English sports book, but maybe you can find internationally. But I thought that was pretty interesting. So at least English Vegas thinks he's dropping out of the top 10.
I just think Charlotte, like, that is such a Charlotte pick. It really is. Although Devin Booker apparently is like the one guy they're going to get, which they should, because Devin Booker's really good as a shooter, and that team can't shoot, so you need someone to do it. But I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I think, like, in a weird way, it makes sense for Charlotte, though, because at least then you got the replacement for Al Jefferson. You just got him a year early, and they're just, that team just, I don't know if that team knows what they're doing.
Okay, and mine's going to be, I think Trey Lyles goes top 10. I'm not sure. Maybe I think he even like could go to the Heat. I think that's maybe like one spot where they need like another big, especially if there's that thing with they want to get rid of McRoberts' contract, so then he can kind of spell between like the 3 and like small ball 5 even, or if like Bosch he played 4. So I think that kind of works.
My one lock for today, my one lock pick, Detroit at 8 though. In all seriousness, Detroit at 8. I think they do just take Stanley Johnson. I think that's
like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that's just the lock of the day outside of the top 5.
Unless Hazonia gets there.
I think he goes 7 to Denver. I think that's a Denver guy. They need a shooting guard.
Would Detroit move up for him with like his agent now being the?
Does anyone want to play in Detroit? Like that's the big question. Like, do you want to go and play in Detroit though?
I guess he can like sell him as like we'll make you the face, the star. You'll be the biggest. And like he's from Spain, he might not know what Detroit is. I guess you can say it's like where Ford is. Ford's like
yeah.
It's
I
like,
mean, it would be a selling
where
point to play
like,
for Van Gundy.
someone
That's a
internationally,
good selling point.
someone internationally, you know about Detroit more than you do Denver. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Because you have like the music culture though. I'm not sure like if Hazonia is into like blues.
I mean, you could sell him.
Hazonia hates everything. He's gonna go on there. Like I'm just assuming he hates everything. Which I found it funny though that Porzingis mentioned New York is the best franchise in the NBA, but I think the reason he did that is because he wants to go to a big city.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he cares where he goes in some sense because he just wants to go and play somewhere, but I think he wants a big city just because it's like things are more accessible. Personally, for him, I hope he goes to Orlando just because, in a lot of ways, with some prospects, it's better to be out of sight, out of mind, and develop at your own pace.
New York is like a more European city as well, in kind of like its construct and like culturally, so that could be like another reason where it's like a little easier. I think we've spent enough of your time, so if like Matt and Justin, if you want to like tell people where they can find your work and things you're up to.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, just real quickly, Jason Jones, Kings Sacramento writer, said similar to what Chris Broussard is reporting, sources have contacted me saying firing George Karl has been mentioned in league circles.
Jeez.
And yeah.
He then followed that up with he thinks it's more likely Karl will retire than fired, but that's unlikely.
Retire.
Unbelievable. What a shit show.
This is so bad. Like,
how many more hours of this?
Who do you want? You know who you should guys get as your coach? D'Antoni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's like the exact same. Like at least he's like appeases the Vivek up tempo, but I don't know.
I don't think Cousins would hate him. Like I think Cousins, like I think they would bond, like, because without going too much into detail, like, because D'Antoni's had big men who've been productive with him. You know, Amari, Dwight, Gasol, like they were all still productive with him.
He seems pretty chill too. Like he seems like a guy that players really like. Just
yeah, like you haven't run into a player who's been like, I hated playing for him.
Right.
He's not a snake in the grass.
Definitely not a snake in the grass.
And think about all the guys he got career years, talking about Sean Marion and Raja Bell. Somehow, and what was it called? Amari Stoudemire somehow was great for him in New York before Carmelo came along. Poor guy.
I mean, the issue will be if they do fire him, is they just want to appease Boogie and get Mark Jackson, because that was like the name that like Mark Jackson and Boogie had that like interview or something when Malone first got fired, and yeah, so that would be my worry that they kind of go the opposite way, where they just
at least Karl could coach. Like that's the good news on Karl. He can at least coach. Not sure we can say the same about Mark Jackson.
No.
Well, in the good side of that Mark Jackson hire, we wouldn't ever have to hear him on ESPN ever again.
True. Oh, that is so true. That was like the best stretch of ESPN basketball ever. Like, whatever made someone hire him? Like, you hear him on TV and he's awful. It's like, why would you ever hire somebody that sounds like that?
There goes that man.
My favorite thing was whenever they went to commercial, and like he would start monologuing like he would use his preacher voice. Like it's like dude, I'm not listening to your sermon. Come on. And every I kept taking screenshots because I GIFed the finals and I took screenshots. And it was funny because like whenever I would screen cap, I would always screen cap the beginning of the game whenever they would show the announcers, and it would be like the Mark Jackson face for every game was just him looking ridiculously annoyed to even be in the building. Like, I can't believe I have to watch my former team win. Like, he just, like, ESPN did him wrong on that one. They should have had Hubie do it. They should have had Hubie Brown.
Yes, definitely.
This draft is going to be interesting.
Latest mock by Chad Ford has Kings taking Mario Hezonja.
Yeah, that's been the sexy one today.
Yeah.
Everyone's had that. It's been Mario Porzingis every mock, I think.
I
think from
I want something dumb to happen.
Don't worry, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Just wait for the Kings.
It's gonna happen.
Just wait.
No, but like something so stupid that...
I think the Celtics move up like 4 picks and they take like Willie Cauley-Stein or something at 5 or 4. I think that might happen.
You mentioned Trey Lyles. Detroit at 8 might be a Trey Lyles thing, even though they traded for what's his name from Milwaukee.
Urson.
Yeah, even though they traded for him. But like,
There's kind of interchangeable parts kind of thing.
There's gonna be some dumb pick. Like you just there's gonna be some dumb pick.
Like
Cameron
Tyus going top 15, like Tyus being this third point guard.
Cameron Payne to Miami or something. It's like, what are you doing? Like, no. Yeah. Like, seriously, that guy's AC Law. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of him.
AC Law's
team picks the wrong Harrison twin. Maybe that happens. They like get the name wrong, and they just pick the wrong one.
Apparently, Houston's trying to sell number 18 to create cap space to make a run at either Love or Aldridge for max contract.
But it's like Terrence Jones as well on the.
Yeah, but I think they only have to deal one of them, and they're going to be paid I think the same amount of money.
He's like $3 million.
Not really. I mean, it might just make sense to deal the pick to get the room, but it's like who? First, you got to find a team that wants to pick outright, and that's where I think the Clippers can come into play. Because the Clippers want to buy a pick, and they can give them $3 million.
That could work. I think they just need like some more players. So I guess because we haven't really talked about the Clippers because you don't really have anything.
No, we have no pick. We're the only team that draft without a pick. But we are going to buy one. Like they are going to buy one. Supposedly just the second round, but we'll see.
Who would you like to go after? Like, where do you think Bobby Portis goes? Would he be a guy that like they could, or with Lance and Bobby Portis, is that too much fun?
I'm trying to think where Bobby Portis. Like I think Bobby Portis goes probably between. I'm looking at the list right now. Probably between 15 and 25, which is a vast range. But yeah, I think teams like Bobby Portis. I don't think teams love Bobby Portis, which is a problem because some teams gotta love you to take you. In terms of the Clippers, I've heard. Oh god, now I just forgot his name. I want to say it's like Rashard Hughes or something like that. Like I'm blanking on his name.
Rashad Vaughn, maybe?
No. He's a power forward.
Oh, okay.
Rashad Holmes.
Rashad who?
Yeah,
there we go.
Holmes.
There we go.
Bowling Green kid.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, there he is. Rashawn Holmes, power forward from Bowling Green. Yeah, he's a little bit what's his name? Mike Scott. He's basically Mike Scott.
Okay.
The bigger guy who can shoot the three but doesn't really do much else, just without the emoji tattoos. The other guy that I actually like, if he's there, Cliff Alexander, because like that would be such a DeAndre Jordan 2.0 pick, because Jordan wasn't supposed to be there for the Clippers when they picked him. Like he was supposed to be a top 10, maybe top 5 pick, and then he just kept falling, and the Clippers got lucky that year. They got Eric Gordon and DeAndre Jordan. So I don't know, like I wouldn't mind either one. I would actually prefer Cliff Alexander just because he's younger. After that, it's basically a take your pick. Like whoever the Clippers pick, I can't see making a difference. Like I'm looking through the list, or like Chris Walker, they've been linked to Larry Nance Jr. though.
What about the Notre Dame shooting guard? The one that looks like he's in like a metal band from the 90s.
Is that Connaughton? Is that who that is?
Yeah, it's something like Coughlin. I don't know. Connington. Pat Connington. He's got like some weird little beard at the end of his chin.
Oh yeah, he can shoot, but I don't look at him as a player. Oh, there he is, Pat Connington. Yeah, he's like the one thing to remember is like a lot of these guys, they're going to be D-League guys who get called up randomly 3 years from now for like a cup of coffee to go right back down. And Connaughton's one of those guys. So, I don't know, like the Clippers are in a situation where I think they're kind of like they're still trying to make moves. They're still trying to see if Paul Pierce wants to come. With the David West news yesterday, there's rumors that David West might want to come play with Chris Paul again. So, I don't know. Like, Doc Rivers doesn't play rookies, so.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If Matt, do you want to tell people where they can find your work and if anything you've got coming up? I know you've been doing lots of things with Derek, who's been on. If anyone is still listening that's listened to any other podcasts, you'd have heard Derek talking about Tannehill, so maybe you want to go into things you've been doing.
Yeah, just basically some writing for each app. A lot of the whole Under the Lens series, basically, we'll look at NFL draft prospect, break them down. We have screen shares so you can watch them, see what guys like Derek, Ian look for when they're scouting prospects. Type of thing where we're going to do it now, and we're going to do it in the future for look at the 2015 games. So if you're an NFL draft fan, Under the Lens on YouTube, check it out. Much appreciated.
And Justin, where can people find you're like I guess the anomaly here, where you're predominantly NBA, but then pretty much like every sport.
Yeah.
Like how's women balls at the moment?
Yeah, I get told I tweet too much about every sport, so I've had people ask me if there's a sport I don't watch, and the only one I don't really watch is cricket because I don't understand it. So.
Or we can do we can do like a swap. I can teach you about cricket, and you can teach me about baseball, because I have no idea about baseball.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, flybynight, FLYBYKNITE. I write for Clips Nation. I write for a website with another guy. It's called The Beat, where basically I write about whatever I want for sports. I've done NFL stuff, NBA stuff, baseball, soccer. I podcast too. I have no life, so that's basically me.
What's your takes on Ipswich's off-season, or do you not go that far into English football?
Oh, I'm an Arsenal fan, so.
Okay, so that's that's like the team down the road from me.
Oh, okay. I'm very interested to see what Arsenal does in the transfer window. They got linked to Petr Cech, right?
Yeah.
Is that like official, or is that just like a rumor?
I think that's a rumor. I used to have like a pretty good source at Arsenal, but not anymore. Like one of their lead scouts, but he retired like 2 years ago. I have no idea. I know they're after a couple of Ipswich youngsters, so I'm shook.
They just signed some, like I think a 17-year-old Turkish kid, I want to say, or something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I mean, they have Gideon Zelalem in their youth team, so. And he just played in the Under-20 World Cup for the United States, so we'll see. We'll see how he. I guess
he'll probably get sold to Barcelona, play really well, then you'll buy him back or like Chelsea will buy him for like 50 million. That's normally how Arsenal work.
Yeah, we saw all the young guys for nothing. Basically, have to reacquire them. Rudy
Yeah, just
Gay
pick up.
posted something on Instagram, by the way. It's a chihuahua squinting and says, "Y'all tripping."
Okay, well,
That,
and
that about sums it up. That about sums it up.
Bill Simmons tweeted out, "I want Vivek to own more things."
Oh man.
Well, I guess we've got a couple more hours of almost dying. You can
How
follow
many-
Ian as well, NFL Film Study. You want to know about him. Is there any last thoughts people want to do? Or shall we stop wasting people's time?
What is there? 2.5 hours before the draft? Is that what there is? 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So half a bottle of sake, cooking sake, I think I've got in me.
I need to go get something to eat because this is about to be a long. I might actually live blog the draft. I live blogged sports on May 2nd, which was a Clippers Spurs game 7, and there was the Kentucky Derby and then the Mayweather Pacquiao fight. I might live blog the draft.
All right. Well, look out for that if that goes down.
Yeah, I'll tweet the link. I'll always be tweeting the link.
And I guess next week we'll have a more normal Miami Dolphins-based podcast. But thanks for coming on and entertaining us, chatting about the mayhem that's about NTU and probably everything he said that's about to be wrong.
It's gonna be so wrong.
Yeah. Winslow for number 1, first overall. His favorite emoji is like a squinty face, then like see no evil. Like someone did like asked all the draftees what their favorite
The Winslow one, right?
emojis were. Yeah, and then he was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"You
that
sent it
one
to
kind
girls.
of, like-
I don't really know what it is, but it works." It's like,
Yeah, that was like kind of weirded me out. It's like, okay, like, yeah, focus on basketball, dude. I don't care what the women like with emojis right now. Like, come on.
and,
But at least he's got a sense of
got
humor.
mature game.
He's got a sense of humor, which is good.
All right, well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the draft.